Hello and welcome to Apologetics 101. I'm your host, Brian. Today I have an interview with Dr. Peter Line on responding to the Out of Africa theory. This is from our RB Apes series, and let's jump in.
Hello, my gentle and, of course, very modern apes.
Here, I'd like to kiss you goodbye.
All right, but you're so ugly.
Human beings are not just related to apes, but actually aren't.
This is a primate, and so is this, and so is this, and so is this. Hey, that's me.
We are still hominids. We're still primates, mammals, tetrapod.
Hello and welcome to Apologetics 101. And I'm your host, Brian, and I'm here today with Dr. Peter Line to discuss the out of Africa theory that evolutionists believe in, that we originated from Africa. We came from Africa, migrated. Well, I'll let Dr. Line describe the details there. But anyway, I'm glad that you with us again, Dr. Line. You've been with us several times now. You becoming a regular. Um,
Yeah, great to be here.
do
Great
you
to be
want to
here.
do a quick introduction, real quick?
Yeah, my name is Peter Lyons. So I have a bachelor degree in biophysics, instrumental science, and a master's degree and PhD in the area of neuroscience, brain electrophysiology, and spent about a decade in that sort of research, and then over a decade in lecturing at a secular university in the biomedical sciences area, anatomy and physiology, and I've had an interest in human origins for a couple of decades or so, and things like that. My professional interest is sort of in the brain and my research. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us on here. Um, so I guess we're just going to keep it strictly Q&A. Uh, Dr. Lyon, do you want to? We're going to be talking today about the out of Africa theory believed by evolutionists. And you've written on this topic matter. Could you describe what that theory is, what is being claimed by the evolutionists, and what is being argued there?
Yeah, well, it kind of has a sort of a history of, I guess, sort of in the, I guess, going back to the 80s, or maybe before. I'm not an expert in the history, but there were evolutionary paleoanthropologists toying with the idea of modern humans evolving in Africa. And that idea was put on steroids with a study by Can et al., I think, in 1987, looking at the mitochondrial DNA, which sort of found that there was more variation in the mitochondrial DNA of African people than in other groups. And we're talking about living people here. And somehow they modeled it and came up with a sort of tree that found that the origin was in Africa about 200,000 years ago. And there's been a lot of disputes about that tree. But that sort of gave an injection to that theory, which basically says that humans in a modern form, you know, in some ways, prefer to call them gracile, But anyhow, modern humans evolved in Africa about 200,000 years ago, and then about 50, 60, 70,000 years to whatever, they supposedly uh, foraged or emerged out of Africa into the rest of the world, going east into Asia and then into Europe, and then replacing all the populations of humans that are basically were a result of much earlier migration, maybe close to 1.5, 2 million years ago in evolution time. I add, I don't believe in these age dates, but for the discussion, I'm quoting them. So don't get me wrong. I don't believe in all these long ages, but so there were already these populations in the world that made us dispersed 1.5, 2 million years ago, and they sort of known as archaic humans. I prefer to call them robust humans because archaic doesn't sound that good, and we don't know that they were that archaic. I believe they were just fully human, just like us. But I believe they replaced them with pretty much no interbreeding, and they went basically evolution dead ends, and so humans took over the world. And some, not all, but some believe that it was a sort of potluck or chance mutation in the brain about 50,000 years ago. Humans' is mental ability, superior mental ability, that aided it, and when it went out and conquered the world, which is sort of became known as the human revolution. And that's the sort of theory that was propagated for sort of in mid to late 80s, 90s, 2000 into 2000s, but in the last decade or so, it really sort of fell apart because pretty much everything turned out to be wrong, and so they basically, I can go into why in a minute or so, but yeah, so it kind of fell on its face, and so they had to rebuild from scratch, and yeah, I'll let you get on to any other next question. We can talk
Right.
about that.
I actually heard that there are revisions to the theory that some say there might be multiple migrations and things like that. Do you see that the possibility of different versions of this theory happening like this, and maybe disputes and debates actually serve against the theory? Like maybe that people are starting to realize there's some issues there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what happened? There was that. I'm not sure I get all the sequences right, but um, there was come evidence like for instance, in the even in the original theory, they'd already been found that modern humans in Israel were dated 90,000, 120,000 years in their supposedly in their dating system. So already there had been forages outside of uh, Africa, even then, earlier than 60,000, whatever the date was. But to them, it was just an evolutionary dead end. That's how they got away with it. But then uh, other things turned up, like there was the uh, apodema skulls or posterior part of the skulls found in Greece, which dated around 200,000 years ago, uh, which was sort of associated with, again, the modern humans or Homo sapiens. So that was at the time when humans supposedly evolved in Africa, and humans weren't supposed to have arrived in Europe, I don't know, 50,000 years ago or something, whatever date is. So that's much, much earlier than it was thought. And then you have also Mislia cave in Israel. That's pronounced right. There was I think, a jaw that was sort of also associated with Homo sapiens, dated about 170, 180,000 years. So again, that indicates humans were in their evolution timeline. They were outside Africa, 100 or 200,000 years before they were even supposed to. And there was always, and then there's sort of, you know, dating of China, fossils in China dated 100,000 years or more. Even in Australia, supposedly 65,000 years. So all these are dated earlier than the initial exit out of Africa. And then you found in Africa itself, in Morocco, there was a Jebel Irhoud um, fossils, which originally dated 40,000 years, and at the time they may have thought there may have been some sort of Neanderthal. That was long ago. And then they were redated to 160,000 years or so, but then they were redated again more recently to 315,000 years or so. So basically that means that, and they were sort of associated again with modern humans or early modern humans. So again, that would be 100,000 years or so earlier than humans are supposed to evolve, and not and more in northern Africa, not eastern Africa, where they're supposed to. So the location, the times were basically all wrong, and so that's sort of kind of all these things were kind of everything added up. Now I don't probably haven't got it in right chronological order, um, and but also you find evidence that in most regions, you're finding evidence, say in Southeast Asia, China, Australia, or whatever, even that. Basically, there's in the modern human fossils there, you find that there are sort of robust or archaic features in them. So it indicates that they had to interbred with modern humans. When modern humans came there, must have interbred with the people that were there before, not, and so they may have just merged together or whatever happened. But that if they interbreed, and by the biological species concept, they are the same species. That so you have to, so then you should be putting them in Homo sapiens, and so you have, and so you have, and you have these fossils, the Harbin cranium, the Huladong cranium, other cranium in China and other places that have a sort of the robust, but they also have short, a human-like face, but a robust sort of archaic cranial vault, and things like that. So you have this combination of the features, mosaic of features in some of these archaics. So it indicates there been a lot of interbreeding, and so there must have been waves of migration, but not in this evolutionary time. This could just be dispersions from Babel at different times, and different people groups settling at different times for a while, then moving on, and things like that. So there's so many permutations and combinations you can make of all this stuff, and so the in Africa, so they've had to try to find a new theory to explain it all. So what sort of emerges? There's a lot of theories emerge. A multi-regional evolution in Africa, followed by a sort of outer Africa event then. So basically they have that different populations in Africa independently evolved there from around a continent, and supposedly interbred now and again when they became in contact, maintaining some gene flow, and then either they emerged out of Africa from different locations, or one group kind of were the survivors and merged out. There's just different theories about this, how it all happened. But again, it's now 60,000 years believed to be when they emerge. But this is just all storytelling. Not some believe more in a multi-regional theory or localized multi-regional theories. Look, it's all over the place, and just to give you what we're dealing with, it's very hard to criticize a target that has all permutations and combinations. But this shows you the human evolution tree, which they now believe is a bush because it's so many possible scenarios. But anyhow, this is from the Science Illustrated from 2024, so it's not that ancient really. It says the conventional story of the origin of humans appears to be completely wrong. Two major DNA analyses are revealing that the human family tree was in fact planted at a different time and in a completely different place. So this is the the story, if it was completely wrong last year, so that's not that long ago. So things are, you know, so that's one of the problems of this. It's just it's all over the place, and I think to me a much likely explanation is, in the Bible, that basically I believe the information or the potential in the information for a lot of these features were in the genome of the people that descended from Noah's Ark, and then and and there was a lot. And if you have this potential for variability, then the Bible that would have there would have been a lot of variability there, and then these populations were scattered across the earth, um, and so you had different groups for genetic drift having taking on different characters, including bony characters, and then you have, possibly inbreeding, which means a lot of traits may say bony characters may be homozygous, so you have pronounced effects. We don't know how many genes are needed for basically to code for a lot of this stuff. What is the epigenetic effects? And there's all sorts of things that come into play that can explain all this. And it doesn't need an evolutionary explanation where you have all the weighting genetic information into gene entropy. So yeah, so that's sort of yeah, in a brief nutshell, yeah,
Okay.
what
You mentioned
what some of the problems are.
the different the different dates that they have that have come out. That's created some kind of confusion on that. Are these dates derived from radiometric dating? I mean, how do they derive these particular dates?
I think it varies where it is. I think some are maybe sort of uh, um, you know uh, uranium series or aluminum carbon, because if I think they're that old, they won't do radiocarbon on it. Although with the hominid remains, because I didn't know, they did various dating techniques, and they came up with a date that they thought was right about, I don't know, 250, 300,000 years. I think it was. Um, I'm not sure. I won't say what radiometric dating was involved, but it was one. But the radio card, did they actually did the radiocarbon dating on some of the bones, and that was in the 30,000s. And then of course, when you get that, they say, oh well, it must have been some contamination, or something must have affected those radiocarbon dates, because they wouldn't want it to be that young. So but yeah, a lot of these dates are. Problem is that with a lot of these dates, they're revised time and again. So it's always plastic. The same with the Hobbit. It was initially dated 18,000 years, and then it had all these, even evolutionists, saying it was just a modern human with pathology, and then it was later redated, and you got sort of out of it. It got it out of a jam, sort of more between sort of 50, 100,000 years ago, that they were there. So that sort of, and then in their theory, humans weren't on the island then. So that sort of, in their thing, took care of that sort of problem by having it redated. But I don't trust these dates, and it's based on assumptions. That I'm not an expert on that, but I think you had on before. Was it Andrew Snelling?
Yes.
So he talked about some of this stuff, and
You see my video
with a
with
kind
Andrew?
of
Did you see my video with
dated
Dr.?
material, which is supposedly millions of years old, and that turns out to be quite young.
Did you see my video with Dr. Andrew Snelling? On my doc, my
Yeah,
vi-
I watched some of it. There was it's a little, yeah, it was good. Yeah, so yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. That was an awesome video. Um, but basically, what I was getting at on that was that there's different whatever methods they use, they were getting different dates, and so they just basically went with they're trying to go with whatever date that they think it is. So that means they'll reject the dates they're too young, or they'll reject the dates they're too old, or if they do accept those dates, then they have to set to try to revise their hypothesis. Is that how was that what you're getting at?
Well, there's so many different scenarios that you can, sometimes, yeah, they redate. I mean, like in Java, in Indonesia, those have been dated dozens of times, the fossils there, and so it's sort of, uh, but yeah, things get dated and redated, and basically, yeah, if they accept the new dates, and then maybe they have to revise their scenario, but and I guess when it becomes sort of like a lot of, not just in the ones in Morocco, but you got in Israel, and then in Europe you have fossils that date much older than the Africa Ferry can allow. Then basically, um, you, either they have either the are totally wrong, or the Africa Ferry wrong, or both theories are wrong, which I believe is the case. Yeah, there's no reason why the humans couldn't have migrated from Babel, which probably was sort of in the Middle East area, Africa, and we don't know the genetic variability in those groups that moved in there. It may be that the people that moved into Africa had the groups were very varied, or that they moved in there early and have been there for a while. We just don't know. That they were a bit earlier than some of the other groups that have been sampled. We just don't know. But
Right.
why it shows this variability?
That is a question I have, because one of the most common things they'll point it to by evolutionists is the what was it, genetic diversity or variability of Africans, that they have more genetic. I think was it diversity? The Africans have the greatest genetic diversity, which
Yes.
suggests a longer history. Do you know about that particular claim, and could respond to it?
Well, I think that from analysis of living people, that they claim it has the greatest genetic diversity. So I'm not a geneticist, so I won't argue with that. But you're presuming that you know what the makeup was of the people who actually initially populated Africa. Is a pretty huge continent, and so we don't know what the variability was to start with, and it's relatively close to the Middle East as well. So, some groups that were going to have greater variability than others. So it may just be by chance that they had the variability. We just don't know. Or that they, like I said, there may have been several groups that came in and were quite different in the genetic makeup, and then have later interbred, and so it just sort of, yeah. I don't. It, I don't think it's a really big issue. The evolution make it a big issue because it kind of, they use it to support their theory, or their out of Africa theory. But there were people also that believe that humans basically didn't originate in Africa. That the multi-regional theory, which kind of believed that instead of out of Africa, that humans evolved from what they call Homo erectus populations that may have migrated out of Africa, 1.5, 2 million years ago. That's just, again, not based on, that wasn't based on DNA evidence, because I didn't even have the DNA evidence. But uh, but anyhow, but then they sort of evolved in parallel across in different regions of the world, and whether in China or in Java or wherever these Homo erectus humans were, and that somehow they were somehow genetic, like the African multi-regionalists, and somehow there was a genetic flow between them that kept the population still go as evolving sort of similar features, and that they all got across the finishing line to anatomically modern human at the same time. Now that probability wise is just not on. Just that's not plausible either. But
Right.
so but there so but that was the theory that was competing with the out Africa theory, and basically both were falsified. And now you're just looking at uh, in regions of the world that the fossils indicate that basically there was a lot of interbreeding between what you call archaic or robust and modern or gracile humans. And
Right.
so to me, and of course, as people migrate, you're going to find variation, and it may just happen that Africa had the greatest variation, that maybe people migrated for Bible there earliest, different. They went to different areas, and maybe they later interbred, and anyhow, it created a lot of diversity. But I'm just speculating. But
Right.
to me, it's not a big deal. It's only to the people who live in out of Africa that it's a big deal. But they have so many problems with their theory. It's all basically just storytelling at this stage. That they're patching up already a falsified theory. And why? And as I read to you, if a year ago someone the conventional story of the origin of humans appears to be completely wrong, uh, what are we to believe? Do you
Right.
believe in these tales, or to me, I'd
You got
rather believe
different
in God's
versions of
word.
the story
And
too on top of that. So it makes
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it not only
definitely.
it kind of seems to rubber stamp this idea that they're giving a falsified fictional picture of what they think happened because they got different versions
Yeah,
of the events, and you got different dates they're going on, which is another thing I was going to ask you about. A lot of times they'll point to fossil evidence of early hominins in Africa, but that's also going to be based on how they date some of these fossils. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I'm not sure whether you're talking about the Homo erectus or the Australopithecines or what, but they kind of they believe that
Examples.
the Australopithecines were sort of the early hominids, except for some other ones, which I mean you can argue against all of them. They're basically, but they've dated the early ones with from lava, volcanic ash or whatever, and using was it potassium, argon, and again these are unreliable dates because I think that was it Snelling or something that published dated volcanic rock in lavas, like in, I think it was in New Zealand or things, which dated in the last 50, 100 years, which also gives similar ages. So what do you believe? And so, but yeah, it's all based on a lot of this dating methods, the whole thing. Of course, if you don't have the ages, then human evolution is a non-starter anyhow. Well, it already, even if the ages already is, because we know now from the complexity of the human genome of how to get the information in there, and the incredible complexity, and just the and and the DNA and how it's arranged, and the levels, the folding of the genome and the proteins, everything has to be right. And how you get this fixated into the information in the genome, the waiting time problem, and the most you can get is fixated in selected for in 6 million years, sort of from the roughly the split from the supposedly our common ancestors with humans and chimps is about 1,000. But we know if the difference between human and chimps is it used to be said it was 1%, but that would still be 30 million base pair changes or 5% difference, which would be 150 million base pair differences. That's a lot of letters to get fixated in the genome in that short time when it's not even seemingly possible. And then you have the entropy problem, genetic entropy problem, um, slowly falling apart like rust building on a car's door. And so if you know if we really were 6 million years old, we'd probably be a sort of mutated blob somewhere. That's that's the yeah. So yeah,
And of course, you
I
mentioned
don't know whether that answers
Neanderthals
the question
earlier.
or not, but
You mentioned Neanderthals
mm,
earlier, and and a lot of times evolutionists think
yeah,
Neanderthals and modern humans are separate species, but we actually have evidence of interbreeding, and
mm,
obviously we have evidence also of Neanderthals being human, and me and you have talked about that in the past as well as me and Dr. Bergman.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but I was getting
Mm,
at that it depends on how you date them, and some of these they try to date to like 200,000 years ago and that sort of thing to try to make it more, I guess, supporting the theory. But there's different dates and stuff that they've come up with, and this has made people rethink the theory and try to revise it. And so it seems like it's got a lot of holes in it. Like there's like even with their made up story, they can't make up their mind how the narrative is supposed to be presented.
mm. Yeah. Well, I think the story of it. Yeah, they don't believe. It used to be that once upon a time they believed that um, Neanderthals were the kind of the missing link or transitional between humans and Homo erectus. Uh, that was sort of maybe a while ago, but now they don't believe that. They believe it's sort of a dead end. But there are some that believe it's a subspecies of Homo sapiens because they did interbreed and with humans, and all the findings now coming show that they were very intelligent, and so basically and they survived in a very cold climate. And the thing is, it's just judging from some differences in the cranial features, and even humans today have differences in cranial features. So I can show you a Neanderthal. I'll show you a Neanderthal skull here. Okay, so so basically um, it has a sort of, well, it doesn't say, this doesn't show much, but a little bit about occipital protrusion here. Doesn't. This is the Leferasi one skull, but you can see it hasn't got much of a chin, so it's more flat here. It's sort of there. Um,
Might need to
it
raise
has
it
a
up a little
more
higher.
long, low skull. Yeah, has a more long. The skull is a bit longer, lower. But its cranial capacity. This one is six. I think it's over 1,600 cubic centimeters. So it's larger than the average modern human, which is about 1,350 cubic centimeters. And you can see the so and the cranial vault is sort of more. It's low and it's sort of the forehead. You can see it receding there. It has sort of brow ridges here. It has the front. It has a sort of large sort of nasal aphasia opening here, and it has a large face, and the face protrudes a bit, prognathic, but it protrudes a bit. And then you have so you can see the modern human skull. There's a little bit more of a chin here. Okay, the nasal aperture is smaller, but and you can see here the forehead is more vertical, and so sort of the cranial vault is more domed. It's higher. It's the skull is shorter, so yeah, it's not as long, and so basically, but they still have. Does it really matter? I don't think it really matters. The brain in this one was just in the Neanderthal were just as large as humans, and a lot of them are larger. So I don't think, you know, it used to be in the 19th century, there was a science called phrenology where they measured humps and bumps on the skull and classified their mental capacities based on the humps and bumps, and that was completely it was a pseudoscience. It was completely false. And so, this is so, that's the thing. Well, because you have some different features on the skull, it's only because you assume they evolved.
All right,
So, so
I do have another question here. I don't know if you talked about this yet on the when you discussed the flaws, but I heard there's a recent discovery of Homo sapien fossils in China, considered possibly older than the out of
mm,
Africa migration, has caused some geneticists to, or some scientists to reconsider um, parts of this model. What do you think of this, the impact of this discovery? Where they discover certain ones that are older than their an
yeah,
actual out of Africa model.
yeah. Well, there are ones that have been discovered in China that are in their timeline at least 100,000 years or more old, or something like that, and even and so if in the new version out of Africa model, they so emerged 60,000 years ago. So that means there were already humans there before, modern humans in China and other parts of Southeast Asia before that. And before that, also in Europe, in Greece, and in Israel, and in Australia, and in Australia there were the dates may not give Australia, but in their dating, Australia was occupied. There were humans in the dates in their dating 65,000 years ago. So there are so so that so the only way to counter that is they have to have multiple migrations, earlier migration, and but I say there was a main event 60,000 years ago. This is what I'm getting at, the storytelling. You can adapt, you can tell you can adapt the story, but the thing is, the more times you have to kind of explain away evidence by adding bits to your story, the more sort of um,
What they call
well
ad hoc.
ridiculous, or yeah, it becomes, it just the the more likelihood of it being totally false becomes, because you have to add all these things to make it true, um, and things like that. And even I was going to read you another quote there from this. This is from March, April 2003, American Scientist. So that's about two years ago. But this is Bernard Wood and Alexis Ulutku. So Bernard Wood is one of the doyens. He's one of the thinkers in anthropology. So he's one of the bright people, and this again illustrates what the uncertainty. So I'll just read out because it's from this article, the inevitably incomplete story of human evolution, on page 106. It says, people often enjoy reading about where humans come from and how today, upright walking, omnivorous mammals who inhabit every continent and who enjoy reading about our own evolution. Such accounts generally offer a presentation of the fossil evidence for human evolution and a narrative describing how we gradually transformed from our ape-like ancestors via a series of intermediate forms into modern humans. Popular narratives on this topic generally include explanation about how, when, and why our human ancestors' posture became upright, the gait became bipedal, their diet shifted from vegetarian to a combination of meat and plants, and their brains enlarged. Unfortunately, we have to disappoint you. Although a narrative of this type would look like an accurate account of human evolution, it would almost certainly differ from the real evolutionary history. Instead, this article will lay out reasons for thinking the existing human fossil record is incomplete in almost all respects, with little chance that any narrative explanation offered today can be the right one. If the human evolution story were a play or novel, many of its characters would be absent, misrepresented, or poorly developed, and the plot would have many holes. So, and go on to a bit further on and say, a straightforward account is elusive, however, because of two factors that inevitably complicate any attempt to reconstruct evolutionary history. What is missing from the fossil an archaeological record and a great variety of ways to interpret that record. So that's the thing. People can make up stories, interpret things all they want, but that's just it's a story, and likely a tall story. And
Right.
so, and this storytelling has been going on for decades. And then it seems like every year every find is rewrites the story almost, or parts of it. And so do you really want to hang your hat on something like that,
Right.
or do you want to hang your hat or trust in God's word? To me,
Yeah.
I'll trust God who says he was there in the beginning, rather than these stories which even they admit are unlikely to be true. Because there's so many missing pieces missing and so much we don't know. So yeah,
Right. There are
I don't know if
some
that
that
answers the
are trying to
question.
argue for a bottleneck in Africa. Me and Donnie was talking about that the other day because we had an interview recently, and and he spoke about that as well. Do you know anything about that? It sounded like that they claimed this because the genetic data wasn't quite fitting their narrative or something, but as much as they thought, and but they claimed that there was a bottleneck in Africa. Do you know anything about that?
But it was just the other day. I got this paper in Molecular Biology and Evolution 2025, volume 42, page 1 to 5. I haven't gone through it, but it says by Cousins and Vasula. It says it titles insufficient evidence Pleistocene transition. Um, so basically, it's talking about uh, the authors about a severe bottleneck 25 in the ancestors of modern human approximately 1 million years ago by applying personate genome sequence from African population. So basically, they're disagreeing with that. So basically, so there's a lot of so they say in summary, we find there is insufficient evidence to support a model of human evolution approximately 1 million years ago. We stress that newly proposed models should be shown to fit the data as well or better than traditional models. So I think this is, again, as people can people can do studies and have an idea of what they think, and then the data fits. Then other people do another study and find the data doesn't fit. So basically, I don't know too much about it, but I think that there are evolutionists who disagree among themselves, and a recent study saying that, well, it doesn't work, probably says that it's not really a big bottleneck in Africa. That there was no bottleneck coming out of Africa or something like that. I don't. I'm not an expert in that area, but I'm just saying
Right.
there's two arguments. So
On uh the model that younger biblical Christians have concerning Tower of Babel, what would you say is the best model in understanding
mm.
migration from the point of view of biblical creationism, point of view of the Bible?
Well, I think I think there's probably not that many models, but I think the the most intuitive thing is that there was a lot of variability at Babel. It had to come from somewhere, so it had to come from originally the people on the ark, and there may have been some mutations or something, of course, because that occurs in people, but generally there would have been a lot of variability, and then when that God says He scattered them and changed the language, I don't know what else happened, because the Bible, that it just tells a small nugget of a story, not much. But if you assume that a lot of these groups migrate out in different directions, and some migrate a lot further than others, and then others settle earlier than others, and then later the populations, maybe hundreds of years later, moved on, and that's where you have these waves of migrations occurring. there's a lot of the picture isn't settled, but the thing is there must have been the variability or potential for variability in that genome there that accounts for most of it. But there's a lot of things we don't know about epigenetics. What effect can that have? And there's so I yeah I don't think there's no sort of magic bullet explanation, if you like. I think it still needs more work, but I think the best model is one that uh, assumes that there was a lot of variation, potential variation in those populations moved out of Babel, and genetic drift and other things uh, increase that. May the basically how to explain it, the genetic drift it resulted in sort of a lot of the variation was seen, and then you have inbreeding as well and stuff like that. But I think things like Homo erectus and stuff like that, or I call them robust. Whether they're Homo heidelbergensis or erectus, I think I put them all in the same category in
You spread
Babel
the
or very soon after Babel, because you get Homo erectus in Africa, China, Indonesia, and a lot of them are similar. And so this you can't. So to me, it's just too coincidental that you get these things that came later, and so basically, there must have been features, but a lot of the severe features we see could be explained by I don't know how many genes coded by them. The inbreeding and you got a homozygous effect, or there could be pathology in some, but the general features, I believe, robust features are not pathological. That's just too simplistic. Because there's pathology in them, but it's a pathology in modern humans too. So you can have a Neanderthal with pathology, you can have a robust human erectus with pathology, and I believe all the same. It's just variation. So but they're not kind of but they have some intrinsic that a lot difference in I believe developmental is the only way to explain it, where you have difference in hormones during development, intensity and frequency or certain hormones during development can cause basically a lot of them, and that could have been programmed into the genome already. And when it was expressed, I don't know. But you have this thing. When was the modern human form expressed? We just don't know. There are a lot of questions that need to be that answer that. So we do have things that we need to do more research on. But it's hard when all the world's money is going to support the evolution.
right.
All you don't have access to anything. It's all going towards that. So they have all those cards, and I still can't get the story straight.
Yeah, I don't want to delve too
So
much
yeah,
into this because I know that we have got an entire video where we talked about the different reasons for these types of differences that we see in
yeah.
human fossils and stuff. But I do have a question that would you say that that there could be a wide variety of different factors that could affect the genetic diversity, the fact that that the population is more spread out, like they spread out from Babylon or Tower of Babel, and they just kind of and
Mm,
that would isolate the genome in different locations, and of course you got inbreeding that can occur as well
mm,
during that time. Do you think that
yeah.
would affect the uh, genome as far as that goes? At least you know. In various locations because you're isolating that
Well,
genome in as they're spreading out, and so in those areas,
mm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you'll get homozygous effects on the alleles in a gene. So you got so you could get more pronounced features. So instead of moderate brow ridges, you get pronounced brow ridges. I don't know how many things code for it. So how many genes are involved in the brow ridges, but these are but it's more the effect of the hormones. So growth hormones can really affect um, the brow ridges and things like that, and it all depends on interaction of other parts of the skull too. How the neurocranium develops. So there's all this different interaction. Um,
Right.
but you get isolated, and you can get some mutations as well. You have inbreeding, and you have genetic drift, which is the isolation part. You basically go into an area, and then by chance you get different genes. But I think some of the robust stuff would have been the early migration seems to have been, like in Indonesia, China, Africa, a lot of it seemed to be very robust. So a lot of the early migration there seemed to be they had robust morphology, and I, one reason, one possible explanation is that there was a linkage between being, the Bible talks about long lifespans, and there was a linkage between robusticity and long lifespans. I think Carl Whelan was one, from CMI was one who proposed that idea, and so it was possible after the flood that, you know some people did still live longer, but this robusticity, whether it got the link got broken or whatever, but you still have this robusticity there. So if you think of the pre-flood world where people living 900 years, having sort of a thicker, more stronger skeleton would probably be an advantage if you're living for hundreds of years. Having a bit thicker skull in that sort of world may have been quite an advantage. And so we just look at it from the eyes of today, but if you look at it from the eyes of the past, there may have been some very, very good reasons why God created all that potential for variability and things like that. But for some reason, although a lot of this robusticity, it seems to have disappeared in general. Not totally though. There are still people around, but not very frequently who have robust features still, and we do still see variation, people with brow ridges, receding foreheads around today. So it's not that it's totally disappeared. It's just that it's very less common, but it doesn't affect the mentality. People are human. This and this is it's some of the brilliant minds like Anatole France had a Homo erectus-sized brain. He had a Nobel Peace Prize for Literature. So you can't judge people by the cranial capacity or the shape of their skull. That's just sort of, that's not scientific. And even I think people know, there's been billions of people live. We don't know the full range, but I think under 700 cubic centimeters, there was a guy in Britain in 100 years ago lived that had normal intelligence, and I forget his name, but I don't have the information in front of me. But I think, no, probably wasn't in a talk because I didn't get a chance to come around to it. I was going to discuss brain size, but I didn't get around to it. But there was a guy like that. So there's a lot of so people have this obsession with brain size, but the thing is, some of the more robust skulls in China, which also have some modern features in them, which have been found later, like the Suzhang one which was, apart from it's very large, but it had a lot of erectus-like features like low cranial vault, and torus at the back, brow ridge, things like that. But it has a cranial capacity of 1,800 cubic centimeters, which is way above the human average. And so basically, you can't equate archaic and robusticity with brain size, because the pattern doesn't match. A lot of it just doesn't match, and it doesn't match with the Neanderthals. And so what you're left with is basically the brain size isn't correlated with robusticity. So is robusticity correlated with intelligence? Well, that I certainly say no. And you go back to phrenology and stuff like that. So, which is totally wrong. And
Right.
the brain is very plastic. You can people can have relatively normal intelligence who because of they had some you know, intractable epilepsy, had half the hemisphere removed and still have relatively normal intelligence. The other hemisphere can take over functions uh, in the one that got lost, particularly if they're young. So that remarkable plasticity. I don't know how that could have how that could have evolved, because if someone had that problem on, say, the African savannah, where we supposedly evolved or whatever, wouldn't they just have been eliminated? I don't see how there was no one doing neurosurgery in that situation. So to me, that kind of falsifies the whole brain enlargement theory, and the fact that pretty much falsifies evolution. You could have so much plasticity in the brain built in, you know.
Right.
So
Some people
yeah,
argue that there's no scientific evidence for the Tower of Babel, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's a historical event. It's kind of like someone sort of saying there's no
yeah,
scientific evidence for George Washington. Well, you wouldn't expect there
yeah,
it
yeah,
would be historical. It's an event in the past, and so the Tower of Babel's evidence is the historical
yeah.
record
Well,
of that.
the thing is, yeah.
But go ahead.
What is the historical? You're gonna where is that? Where is that written record? It's just in the minds. It's just a human construct that was invented Charles Darwin, and most of his has been falsified. You know, he didn't know anything about DNA, the complexity of the cell, and so there's like a mini universe of cell, and you have trillions of them in your body. Uh, Never mind the brain. The more almost infinite functional, specialized complexity of the brain, and you don't even know how the mind works, which is part of the brain. Um, and basically, so you have these huge problems of evolution, which have only been shown since the theory came into being by as knowledge has advanced at the microscopic level. And so to me, and there's no narrative historical evidence of evolution. It's just interpreted based on it, it's based on some radiocarbon dates essentially, and tall storytelling. That's what it's based on.
And one
And
of the things that seem to be
yeah,
verified through the out of advocate theory is that there's different dates they're coming up with, and they're picking and choosing which ones that best serve their purpose. So that's interesting that it's like they need to try to have a consistent narrative, and their narrative is like all over the place because they can't seem to pin down exactly when they think these things happen, or they have to guess at it, or add to the story, or whatever the case may be. And it just makes it just it's like you're adding if you keep adding more and more fictional elements just to try to make the situation work, it's looking more and more like a made up
yeah,
story. We
yeah.
a
Well,
little
in
over
the
an
end, it
hour.
becomes
Right. I was gonna say we're a little over an hour in now, and so I didn't expect this to be a very long discussion. But you've written on this topic, you
yep.
researched it. What is your final thoughts on this? Just kind of give me the overall gist of what you think on the theory.
I just look at the history of it, that it sort of it got its boost using some mitochondrial DNA evidence, and a few paleoanthropologists had this idea. They put it together of this population evolving in East Africa around 200,000 years ago that emerged out 50, 60,000, 70,000 years ago, and replacing all people all, well, people that they call archaics, or whether it's erectors, heidelbergenses, or whatever, which I look at them as robust humans, that they were full human just as us, although they wouldn't look at it that way. And replacing them about hardly any interbreeding, and basically, and some believe there was a magical mutation that happened that gave humans superior mental ability, you know. And then this has all fallen on its head, and now you're having these multiple, to patch it up. You have first you have to have multi-regional evolution, means across Africa, but humans evolved in parallel, but somehow got the genes were connected at times, that they all became human at the same time, sort of again. Uh, and then basically we have this, yeah, to make it work, to explain all the fossil evidence of in there by their dating methods, you had to have modern humans emerge out of Africa much earlier than their date. So if there's a modern human in Greece 200,000 years ago, then there must have been a human emerging out of Africa over 200,000 years ago to end up in Greece 200,000 years ago. And a similar of other places, you have these robust humans with modern features, like in China, things like that. You have these skulls which are dated hundreds of thousands of years in their timeline, which means that they must have interbred with modern humans in their timeline hundreds of thousands of years ago outside Africa. And these are fossils from China and other things. And the other thing is, we know from Australia, an evolutionist here analysed the fossils, like say Land Lake hominid 50 is one of the most robust fossil sort of humans in the fossil record, and really thick cranial wall, robust brow ridges, things like that. It has a cranial capacity much above the average human. I think it's 1540 cubic centimeters. Yet they say that it has to be descended from, at least partially, from the solar man Nangdong erectus in Indonesia, because it features match those, a lot of it. So it must have. So there you're talking about now solar man Nangdong erectus. They supposedly descended from the Sengerian erectus, or basically erectus that migrated out of Africa nearly 2 million years ago. So here you have humans. So if from the Land hominid, everybody believes it's human, which it is, but it must have been its ancestors must have, modern humans must have interbred with the erectus that was separated from Africa for nearly 2 million years, because Solomon was at the end line. The dates vary from 27,000 years to a few 100,000 years ago. The dates change all the time. And so basically you have these fossils in Australia which are human but have an partial ancestry in Indonesia. And the only way for this to work is if the Indonesian erectors were also Homo sapiens. They interbred with them. Otherwise, you have humans which are Homo erectus, which weren't human. Otherwise, you have humans here which weren't human. That's not negotiable. And everybody believes it's human. So the erectus humans in Indonesia were human solar man. And then for that to work, you have to have the Sengerius erectus, which migrated much earlier in the evolution time, has to also be human. And so basically, and that's the multi-regional theory, or what Milford Woolhoff believes, all erectus should be reclassified to Homo sapiens, because that gets rid of all this ambiguity and things, and because otherwise you have sort of non-humans mating with humans, and basically, and we believe we are all humans today. That's the thing, and
Right.
So a lot of this stuff is, and yeah, so I think the outer Africa theory, yeah, it's just a story for evolutionists, but I don't buy it, and it's just now a patched up sort of story as well, because
Right.
it has there's more and more things to explain it. There's more things that different dates and things like that, different, things like that, and different evidence, that comes up and stretches its credibility.
Right. And there's all kinds of questionable elements to it. The biblical narrative makes more sense, absolutely. Thank you, Dr.
Definitely, yeah.
Lyon. I appreciate your time um, uh, and discussing this with us today. That's a popular idea. Maybe some people don't know that there's variations and different views among evolutionists on that, and different dates that they've come up with, and so that it challenges various areas of the theory, and in some cases the whole theory. And so I really appreciate you coming on here to discuss that with us and providing a response to it on the out of Africa theory. It's just not a. Would you say that it's not a coherent theory? Like it's not. It doesn't seem to uh, maybe not consistent, possibly even.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, there's so many different versions of how they evolved in Africa, multi-regional Africa, and how they emerge, when they emerge, who emerged, what part of Africa emerged, what time did they emerge, and all this stuff, and and uh, and then there's the questions about some would question, so did humans evolve outside Africa as well? There's people who believe that, that sort of, that so that was the multi-regional theory. I don't believe that's totally gone away, but the dominant one is the out of Africa for sure. But the thing is, there's the different versions of that. There's a lot of disagreement about that. They may have come to some consensus, but consensus isn't science. That's just
Right.
you sort of herd mentality, form an opinion for yeah.
Right. What opinion just happens to be popular. All right. Thank you again, Dr. Lyon. I appreciate you coming on here discussing that with us. And I hope everything's going well for you in Australia. Um, um, how's everything? Are you doing good?
Yeah, no, I think things are fine here. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Likewise,
Okay.
hope things are well with you. So good talking to you again.
Yeah, you too. All right. Well, unless you have something further to add, do you have anything like a final word to leave everybody with, or?
Well, yeah. Look, well, I'm a Christian. I don't deny that, and that the reason this is important uh, uh, to me, and I'm not sort of like sipping pina coladas on a beach somewhere, just a joke, but um, is that matters of origins affect your destiny. What you believe are origins will in the end affect your destiny. And there's Jesus said there's an there's the one that leads to the gate to heaven is narrow, and it's only through him. But it's very simple, It's just if it says if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. And that's what I believe. Jesus is the Creator, who made us in the beginning, and he became here on earth, took on the form of man to die for our sins on the cross, and took our punishment. And he showed he was God, and by resurrecting from the dead in 3 days, no, only God could do something like that.
Right.
And so, and that, and if you look at the testimony of all the apostles, most of them, except for I believe John, died horrible deaths. Would they die for a lie? I doubt. I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't. So
No.
so I would urge people to. That's the most important take a message that
Yeah.
you know
I'm actually trying
think
to
about
get
giving your life to Jesus Christ. that there's on this world of uncertainty. That's one thing that's certain. Make sure your eternal destiny is certain, and that's what I would tell people. To
Yeah.
basically ask Jesus to God to forgive their sins and ask Him to be the Lord and Savior of their life. That's fine. That's the message I'd like to say. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again, Dr. Line. I appreciate it very much. And it's always a pleasure to have you on here. So thank you again, Dr. Line, and I guess we'll see you later.
It's okay. My pleasure too.
All
Yep.
right.
See
God
you then.
bless.
Bye. Bye, Ryan. Bye.
Well, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching Apologetics 101. Thank you for watching our response to the out of Africa theory. It wasn't intended to be a very long video, so I hope you enjoyed this. I've had Dr. Peter Line on here several times, and so it's great to have him on here again. Maybe we'll have him on in the future videos and other discussions that we could have. I know that he's talked a little bit on the out of Africa theory previously, and so this is conclusion to the response to the out of Africa theory. I think the theory suffers from too many revisions, too many versions of it. They can't make up their mind. They can't get their story straight on it for sure. Whether it's the dating or location or whether it's one bottleneck, several bottlenecks. And so when you have a fictional story that's already a fictional story with no real evidence that exclusively supports that particular story, then you wind up with all sorts of problems when you try to add to that fictional story. It makes it look very much like ad hoc rescue. Like you're just throwing up a story and you encounter these issues and you come up with some other explanation to try to explain it, and you're adding one fictional element onto another, and it makes it look really, really bad as a result. They can't even agree on the dating. They've got evidence that seems to contradict this particular theory as well. The idea of genetic diversity in Africa appears to be a confirmation bias. They don't take into the consideration that there could be other explanations for that genetic diversity. I think Donnie Beninsky from Standing for Truth Ministries have a great response of it on my channel in a recent interview that I did with Donnie on genetics, and we did this discussion, and he did talk about the out of African theory just very briefly, but he did talk about that concerning the genetic diversity in Africa and that sort of thing. And I think the biblical creation model explains it better. We have a historical source for the Tower of Babel, and the origin source of where everyone came from, and so that's interesting that we have that. But in any given case, I hope this was good for you guys, and let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the videos, subscribe to my channel. If you're new here, I do lots of different videos. I do interviews. I do lots of great stuff, lots of great content. I got Mike Ord that I did an interview with recently. I've got to edit that video and put that one out as well. That's going to be on evidence for the global flood, so that's an interesting one. And so I've got that video, and Mike does bring us a presentation as well. So that's going to be cool to edit and upload to YouTube. I can't wait. But I'm glad that you guys can join me on here for this. Again, like the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That does help YouTube better promote the video because I know other people like it. Maybe other people that are interested in similar content would also like it, and they tend to promote it more with more thumbs up. So I don't tell people that because I just really want a pat on the back. I can make my own determination of whether a speaker did a really good job, whether I did a really good job on making the video and that sort of thing. The reason why I always sit there and say, make sure you like the video, That's so that YouTube algorithm will know that, hey, there's a lot of people that like this video. Let's promote it more to other people who have similar interests. And so that actually helps support the channel because it gets this information out here to more people. So that's the reason why I always tell people to like the video. I don't do that because I really want a thumbs up. I do that because I know how YouTube algorithm works, and I know that it will help get this video out to more people. And that's what I want to be able to do, is get this video out to more people so more people can see the information. And so it also helps support the channel because people come from one topic or one video, then they may stay for a lot more that I have to offer. And I got a lot of videos I thought up. I want to do one on the resurrection in this year. I'm going to start employing more videos. I've been doing biblical creationism for a long time now. I'm going to still do videos on that, of course. I still got series out on that that I'm going to be doing. I've got an interview scheduled up with Dr. Carl Werner concerning transitional fossils. I think that's for the month of May, if I'm not mistaken. And I've got that going on as well. So I'll still continue to do videos on biblical creation, but I also want to be able to spread out, to expand out a little bit to other topic matters in Christian apologetics. I have done videos on other topic matters, by the way, but that was before my channel actually became popular. So yeah, I will still do videos on biblical creation, and I'm going to continue that line. But before my video became popular, I did do other subject matters as well. But now that my before all the subscribers that I got now, so a lot of my subscribers probably didn't remember my channel when I was doing things on the resurrection, when I was doing response videos on resurrection debates and things like that, debate reviews and things like that. So I am going to expand a little bit out into various subject matters. Plus, I want to give people more stuff, more content. If you only do one type of thing, one type of subject matter, then yeah, you draw all the biblical creationist people to your channel, but there's also other people that may be interested in other things, and even the ones that are passionate about Genesis, like I am, would probably want to see other topic matters discussed on this channel. So I'm going to be expanding out to include other topic matters. It's going to start this year, but I'm not going to be able to do everything I would like to do, but it is going to do some before the end of the year, and I want to do one on the resurrection. I've been in contact with Dr. Gary Habermas, who has he's had some surgeries and stuff like that, but he did tell me that we can continue talking about it, and to contact him in April and see what he can do. He may or may not be able to do one in April. It just depends on what's going on. So we'll see. I don't want to pressure him into it, but hopefully, the video will happen. So I would like to do one on the resurrection. And I got other top matters that I've thought about as well, getting some people on there. I wouldn't mind doing a supernatural series where I also do videos on near-death experiences and things like that. And so it would be kind of cool to have that series. But I also want to do a response to the heat problem, because I've actually come up with my own model, which is what got me behind on this year when I first started, because I started it last year and it rolling over into this year, and I've been studying this matter for months now and formulating a model on it. I've got my own theory on accelerated nuclear decay. It's pretty cool. It's all very, very awesome, and it works really well with all the other models that we believe in and argue for, like the post-flood ice age model. The most YECs agree with the CPT, the catastrophic plate tectonics model, and that sort of thing. So this model works very well with those, and it actually does alleviate the so-called heat problem. And I plan on covering that later. I'm hoping to do a video on that probably post-March. I do plan on going on vacation at the end of March. My Mike Ward interview will be the last one before I go on my vacation. So I got to get to editing that and publishing that to YouTube, hopefully before I go on vacation. And so that's what I'm going to be working on this week. So you guys just stay with me. Again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not. Don't forget to like the videos, to give it a thumbs up, please. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. That allows YouTube a chance to alert you of all future videos, and also be able to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next one.